2025, I'm running with barely a place to hide. If I eat you before they eat me, defeat me before you die. Cannibalistic hunger, zombies are on the rise. Wonder who's going under, take a look in my eyes. Surprised to see your kung fu, kick you before I punch you. Never would I imagine exactly what this world comes to. Walking dead, I still living, mountains feel like a prison. Always fighting to stay alive is the main mission. I'm wishing that this was all a dream, and I would wake up, but everything is what it seems. There is no makeup, and my brains keep on telling me, don't let them take us, cause if they take a bite of me, we're gonna break up, transform into a zombie and join the army. Right then my fellow cannibals are gonna harm me, but before I let that happen, my feet will get to tapping, kicking up so much action, cannibal satisfaction. Look into the eyes of a cannibal. You zombies act like animals. The only way that I can handle you is get you down to the ground with an attitude. Let's go. Look into the eyes of a cannibal. You zombies act like animals. The only way that I can handle you is get you down to the ground with an attitude. This is a zombie apocalypse. I wanna be the one who's stopping it. If I gotta kill a million zombies, I'm down for it. Protect my neck, making sure I never get bit. Cause if I do, I'm biting back like a cannibal chick. I rip the skin off your face, do whatever to live. Deliver the 5 fingers of death, reaching right through your ribs. Survival of the fittest, physically and mentally fit. I eat people and beat evil cause I'm physically fit. Into the eyes of a cannibal. You zombies act like animals. The only way that I can handle you is get you down to the ground with an attitude. Let's go. Look into the eyes of a cannibal. You zombies act like animals. The only way that I can handle you is get you down to the ground with an attitude. Let's go.
I'm Al McFarlane. Welcome to the front room session at the Marcus Garvey House in North Minneapolis, the Marcus Garvey House, home of Insight News. And I'm pleased to have as a guest Naomi Ko. She's one of the organizers, the principals, in the group called Funny Asian Women Kollective. It's presenting a super show this Saturday, October 26th at the Ordway in St. Paul. I had the great fortune of interviewing a couple of her colleagues and Naomi by phone earlier this week for the Conversations with Al McFarlane show on KFAI, and I invited them to come back again to help promote the show. So, Naomi, thank you for coming to the Marcus Garvey House.
No, thank you. Thank you so much for inviting me here.
Talk about this show, first of all. Let's let people know what this show is and what it's about and why they should not miss it.
Yeah, so, Funny Asian Women Kollective, or as we like to call ourselves FAWK, is presenting kind of our super show on October 26th, this Saturday, 8 p.m. And really, it's a culmination of stand-up comedy, comedic sketches, storytelling, music, video clips, really together just to culminate and celebrate, the diversity, but also the humor and the humanity of Asian Pacific Islander American women.
What are you discovering as you produce this? This has been developing for a while, I understand, right? Talk about the genesis of this organization and of this show.
Yeah, so FAWK was organized back in 2013, 2014. I don't exactly remember, but what really happened was I was invited to do a reading in St. Paul, and the curator asked me not to swear and not to talk about sex. So
you can swear and talk about sex today if you want to.
Thank you, Al.
Okay.
I appreciate that.
Right, yeah.
I appreciate that. Yeah, so that kind of really fucking sucked because just the way that I speak, the way that I talk about issues, and one of the biggest things that I talk about is sex and sexual identity, especially as an Asian American woman, and to be kind of censored like that, and I was also censored by someone from my own community, someone who also identifies as an Asian American woman, and to be honest, when I went on that stage, I bombed. It was bad. Like, the performance was so flat. Like, nobody was laughing. People were looking at me weird. It was like cricket. And guess who was in the audience? My two co-founders of FAWK, Mei Liang and Samukta Vangse. And they basically came up to me and they said, I bombed. And
they told you.
Yeah. I think Mooks literally said, you fucking sucked tonight. And that was really, after that, we had a couple drinks, we were talking, and basically we actually all realized that this was an experience that most of us felt, that we were, like, and I'm sure you felt this too, and a lot of people who are people of color experience this idea of societal expectations, pressure to be a certain way, and censure. And we basically said, we're done with that. We're not going to subscribe to those rules anymore. We're going to try to, create, a radical place for comedy, a dangerous place for comedy. And and for us, we don't actually feel that radical or dangerous. It's just that to others we are, because we are finally saying what's on our mind.
I would call you a freedom fighter.
Oh,
that's
sweet.
That's the spirit that I'm sensing. And when you decide that you have the power and the authority to speak your truth in ways that are comfortable to you, that are meaningful to you, it means you are demanding and taking freedom. So I would call you all freedom fighters in that spirit. And I'd put you in the category of the great freedom fighters, people who believe that we're here to demonstrate the best that human beings can be, but to point out how we all screw up at the same time. Comedians have a hard time, I think. I don't know, what do you think?
Yeah, I think comedians do have a hard time every once in a while.
And you guys are not just comedians. Let me say that. Yeah.
I think the difficulty of doing the comedic arts is that people expect us to say, outrageous things, but do it in a way that's funny. And I think, especially what's really hard, I can speak from my position as, an Asian American comedic artist, as somebody who does a lot of comedy, that, the dangerous part is, the difficult part is that still people are like, can you joke about that? Can you talk about that? Or are you sure you wanna talk about that? You wanna go there? You wanna make that joke? And I always come to, well, did it make you laugh? And they're like, yeah, but
Yeah, right.
I think that's always the
like, is it okay for me to laugh?
Yeah.
Kind of. They're asking for permission to laugh on the one hand.
Yeah.
They probably are affected by it, but they're afraid to be for real and genuine. Maybe. I don't know.
No, I think that's definitely the case. I remember when I was in this movie called Dear White People, which is really about being a black student in a white space. And the writer-director, Justin Simien, who is not only black, but he's also gay. I remember at the premiere of his movie at Sundance, he told the primarily white audience, it's okay to laugh at my film. It's okay to laugh because this is a comedy, this is a satire. You can laugh, and I think like, for example, when I watched Spike Lee's Do the Right Thing the first time, I was just cracking. I was laughing so hard, and I remember when I watched it again in college in one of my film classes, like a white student was just like, Naomi, you can't laugh in this movie. I'm like,
What?
Yeah. No. That's a joke.
Right. Yeah.
I think Spike Lee wants us to laugh. I think, that scene where the neighborhood is spraying the white cops out of the neighborhood, that's supposed to be funny. That was funny to me. I think the way he cut it was also very comedic. So I'm like, can't we just enjoy this moment?
That's right. That's right. Where are you from? You're from Twin Cities, right?
Yeah, I was born in Minneapolis, grew up in Cedar Riverside for a bit, and then spent the majority of my K through 12 life in Rosemont, Minnesota.
Small family, big family?
Small family, my father, mother, older sister, and myself.
So you're the baby of the family?
I am the baby of the family.
You cut any slack because you're the youngest, or is it harder for you? What was your story growing up with an older sister?
I think in some ways I was I got some slack, and then I didn't, because it was just my sister and I. So, and my sister she set the tone of being the kid, the firstborn. She's very smart. She's very talented, talented in arts and athletics. So she kind of set a high level of expectation that I had to meet. But I mean, I think in some ways that, her being the eldest child, she, are you the elder? Where are you within your familial placement?
I'm number 2 of 12, and that's why I raised the question, because like my older sister, God bless her, she died. She took the heat for everybody. And so my parents were very strict on her, a little less strict on me, though I got my share of, we called them whippings or beatings, growing up. But by the time they got down to kid number 12, Lloyd, my baby brother, I think there's a picture of him on the walls around here, easy street for him. He could do whatever he wanted to, say what he wanted to, no sweat, no problem, because they were tired. They were tired, right? Yeah. So
we raised all these kids.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think in some ways my parents were just like, whatever, whatever. But I think it's the dynamic has changed now because my older sister's married. She gave my parents grandchildren. I am single. I have no grandchildren prospects. So I think like now things are getting a little bit harder for me in that way, and they're just like, "What are you doing with your life?"
Pressure.
Well, yeah, and I just said, "I don't know. I mean, I know, but I'm not going to tell you."
Let's talk about the art. How have you come to being an artist, being a writer, producer? When did you sort of know that was your path, your destiny? Maybe it's not your final path, but it's where you are now. How did you come to this?
I was always really fascinated with performing. Growing up, I think it was really kind of a really stark shift for me from ages 0 to 5. I was in a very multicultural environment. In Cedar Riverside, there were people from all walks of life, and I never felt othered in that sense. But when I started kindergarten in Rosemount, shout out to Sham Park Elementary for all the reasons. I definitely at that moment felt like I knew, like that's when kindergarten I knew I was Asian. I knew I looked different. I knew that people treated me differently. And performing, because I was first a theater kid, a musical theater kid, and then transitioned to writing and filmmaking. But it was that kind of really great fantasy world that I could be, I could be someone else. I didn't have to be, the daughter of blue collar immigrant parents. I wasn't Asian American. I wasn't Korean American anymore. I wasn't a woman. I could just be whatever I wanted to be. And so, I performed, here and there in high school, throughout high school, kind of stopped after high school because I was just always very curious to why like casting was so difficult. Like I remember a theater director in high school was just like, "Hey, Naomi, we think you're good, but you don't fit." I'm like, "Oh, really?" And okay, and they're just like, "It's Shakespeare. You don't really fit with that." I'm like, "Well, technically, none of us do. Are you just saying like this is a play about people in Venice? Like, are we Italian now? Like, Rosemount's Irish Catholic. Like, calm down."
Right. Right. At the end of the day, it's a play.
It's a play.
Yeah.
So, and then I stopped performing. I stopped doing the arts in college because I was sick of it. I was just like, the institutional racism and the sexism, and I'm never gonna catch a break, and it's never gonna happen, and I'm gonna go to grad school. I'm gonna be an academic. Applied to grad school, didn't become an academic, and went back to the arts because this is really this is the place that I really truly feel that I can be myself and enact a certain type of change.
I'm Al McFarlane. You're tuned into the front room session at the Marcus Garvey House here in North Minneapolis, the home of Insight News. My guest is Naomi Ko. She is one of the founders and leaders of Funny Asian Women Kollective. It's called FAWK, and FAWK is presenting its super show this Saturday, October 26th at 8 p.m. at the Ordway Theater in downtown St. Paul. And we listened to music at the beginning of this program by one of the partners, of one of your partners in this, Brother Akeem.
Yeah, DJ Cool Akeem.
DJ Cool. So thanks to DJ Cool Akeem for that music. Maybe we'll hear some more on the way out of this interview. But Naomi, thank you for being here so much. I'm enjoying the conversation. As you were talking about that, the challenges of casting brought me back to being in Worthington, Minnesota, and at the community college. And I'd been in the Navy already, got out of the Navy. My parents lived in Worthington, so I came back there, and worked for the school newspaper, just communications guy. I like to talk, I like to write. And so one day the theater department, somebody came and said, have you ever done theater? I said, no, but I'm willing to try it. We're doing a play, and we got a part just for you. I said, oh, really? What is it? So it was Lillian Hellman's Little Foxes, and they needed a servant. They needed the black guy, right? So I said, well, interesting. I don't want that part, number one. And if you cast that part, I read the script. It's about power and subjugation and things like that. Mm-hmm. But anybody can play that part. Doesn't have to be Al McFarlane, the black guy, right?
Also, have they heard the way that you speak? Also, your tone and your quality of voice? A servant? No. You're a lead. You're a lead, Al.
There we go. Which is what I tried to tell them, too. And I told them that, tell you what, do the play. They said, well, if you don't do it, we got to put somebody white in blackface. You put somebody white in blackface, I'm stopping this show. And that's what I did. So, opening night, 5 minutes, 10 minutes into the show, I walked up on the stage, turned all the lights on, put a stool in the center of and said, here's why we're not doing this play tonight. So I sat that until the cops came to run us out. Me and my family were all there. But that story you were telling me reminded me of that. And so it's a question then of how do we understand identity and how do we allocate. One of the things you guys talked about on the radio last week was the Miss Saigon. And the Ordway has a history of sort of, maybe it's cultural appropriation, I don't know the right words for it, but there was some resistance to how they did Miss Saigon in particular. Tell me that story if you would. And does it make sense right now in this conversation?
Yeah. So Ordway Center of Performing Arts has brought on Miss Saigon, I think, 5 times to the Ordway stage. And Miss Saigon is a very problematic play, and it has been from the very start. One is that in the original West End casting of Miss Saigon, yellowface occurred. Jonathan Pryce pretended to play a Vietnamese pimp, and there's a very distinct clip of him on morning or some kind of televised interview of him talking about how he taped his eyes like this, and how he arched his eyebrows, and strike one. Strike two is just the content of the play is just so bad. It's a boring one. It's just a boring play. But I think the other thing is that it's this whole thing about American white GIs coming to Saigon during the Vietnam War, and falling in love with a Vietnamese prostitute, and then her deciding to kill herself at the end of the play so her mixed race child can live with her white baby daddy and his white wife in America for a better life, and that's just not the narrative we need to have, especially after World War II, Korean War, Vietnam, about the way Asian women are perceived in American culture. We're hypersexualized, the legacy of these wars and how Asian women were treated in these wars. And so back in 2012, they brought back 2013, my apologies, 2013, the fall of 2013, they brought back Miss Saigon, and finally the community was just like, enough. Come on, you guys. Can you stop this play, and then can you also pick a more interesting play? Can you just pick something that's more interesting? The songs are not even that good. You guys could have brought in Aladdin, Disney's Aladdin. That would be more enjoyable, or just anything. Come on. But so really, us, the community, the Asian American community, and our allies, our POC and Black and Native allies came in to support us. It was a great intersectional moment, and so the Ordway decided, okay, hey, I guess we'll stop. And really, the current CEO and president, executive director Jamie Grant, has said in his tenure he'll never bring back Miss Saigon. So which really fun. You know, Jamie Grant will be playing a surprise performance in our show.
Oh,
this
well,
Saturday.
okay,
Yep.
okay. Well, good.
For penance of Miss Saigon, and really FAWK's placement at the Ordway stage is really just saying we're claiming it back.
Mm-hmm.
We're claiming it back. Like, you don't get to control our narratives. We get to control our narratives, and we're controlling the way our narratives can transform this audience, this Minnesota audience too.
And that's why I call you a freedom fighter. I think that's essentially the work of fighting for freedom, of liberating the human being, and taking both the responsibility and developing the courage to tell your truth and to go into battle. It's not that you intend to be fighting, but if you're going to tell the truth, you have to be prepared.
Yeah.
That somebody will resist it, and you can, either acquiesce or keep teaching, keep telling, keep showing, and keep moving forward. Where do you see this project going as you dream about I was going to ask you earlier, from 2013 to now, how have you seen your relationships and the art evolve? I imagined that it's kind of like, my lens on this is kind of like jazz improvisation, though there's a script and though you have stories that are specific, but when human beings get together, things happen all the time. And the question is, are you free enough to move off a script or bring through script the feeling of the moment that may be influenced by something that happened in the news or happened in a family or didn't happen? And have you discovered magic in this interaction with each other and with audiences in the development of FAWK?
Definitely. To be honest, we're never really on script. We don't even make a script anymore. I think, when FAWK was at its inception with May, Mooks, and I, we never had a script because I think one is also just our personal professional relationships. We perform together, so we have that kind of the flow. But really, at our best is to be free and to improvise, because the work that the three of us do in our individual work too is so personal. It's so impacted by our personal lives, what's going on in the world, and that's really the kind of art that we're making. So, I think as we've now had more members in FAWK, I think we definitely have started to talk about different topics and created new work and found out the things that people are interested in and what's affecting us, but then also seeing commonality in that, finding universality in our very specific moments. So, did I answer your question?
You did. You did. No, that's a great answer. And it leads me to this question that I always have of artists, and that is sort of, what's the vision? What do you see in the near and distant future? What is it that is pulling you, and what is it within that is driving you? I think that people who are doing the creative are people who are called. In effect, they accept a call, and they move, and they're, as often as not, part of them, is dealing with training and practice, but part of them is dealing with something that's more either spiritual or cosmic or maybe undescribable, but there's something within that drives them. So I ask you that question: where do you see, where do you want to go as an artist, as a writer, as a producer? What world are you creating in your own mind's eye? What's the end game for you?
End game for me is, I think very individually, the end game is to create a huge film and TV studio here in St. Paul. I as a filmmaker, I truly believe the power of pop culture. I believe it in the sense of how it can reach such a mass audience, but what I really believe in is the commercial, financial wealth that it could bring, and how many people it can hire, and how can we spread wage equity to our communities here in the Twin Cities. And the thing is that I live part-time in Los Angeles. I work in Hollywood. I see it. It's immense amount of wealth. Why Why do only certain people in LA and New York get it? I think, Minnesota here, coming from the Twin Cities, having this incredibly rich, dynamic, talented, artistic community, not just filmmaking, all artistic disciplines, and with our unique position, I think especially as a woman of color and speaking from this colored perspective, that we have something very unique that we have, in that we're not only diverse and underrepresented and marginalized, etc., but we're also from the Midwest, and we can speak to we have a certain set of values, and we can speak a certain type of language that can resonate with folks in the country. I think especially as an Asian American who works in film in LA, I see a lot of Asian filmmakers in LA not only getting the representation trouble, but also the coastal trouble. Like, oh, why should we care about you? You're not only a person of color, but you live on the coast. You don't understand the American experience. But I think here we really do. Not that they aren't American, but I think we can speak to heartland values, and I think that's an advantage for us. So, for me I have this very ambitious long end goal that does include FAWK. FAWK wants to start moving into media.
You said on the radio, I think last week, you made the point that the proceeds from this show go to the artists. That's a good thing.
Yeah.
Talk about that.
Yeah, all the proceeds of the show go to the artists. So, folks who may feel a little salty about us returning, Asians returning to the Ordway stage, well, don't worry, they're not making money off of this. We're making money off of it. I think it's really important that people realize that artists, artists need to get paid. Artists is being an artist is doing social justice work, is doing radical work, and that work deserves to be compensated. And so I think that's really great, because during my 6-7 years being an artist, a working artist here in the Twin Cities, this is the first time where people are actually getting guaranteed pay. Before, I would do a theater show for 3 months, and I would get paid a stipend of $500.
Yeah.
It's an institutional problem.
Yeah.
It really is.
So you're turning the thing upside down, turning it out, and that's a good thing. Listen, let me ask you to invite people that are listening to the show. You're going to have a special promotional code, right?
Yeah.
So let's talk about that.
So for Al's crew, we have special discount tickets. If you use the promo code FAWK 2019, that's FAWK 2019, you get half off on your ticket. So please come.
And how about white people?
They can pay full price.
I'm just messing with you.
They can pay full price. Call it somewhat reparations.
Reparations, right?
Yeah.
Listen, Naomi Ko, thank you so very much. Who's the show suitable for age-wise? Tell me about that. Is there a limit, a range, or not?
We suggest that audience members be 18 plus, but if you feel like you want to bring younger folks, that is, you got a taste of what I talk about, so it's on you.
Okay. Naomi, thank you so much. I'm Al McFarlane. This is the Front Room Session at the Marcus Garvey House. My guest has been Naomi Ko, one of the organizers, leaders of Funny Asian Women Kollective, FAWK, presenting the Super Show this Saturday, October 26th, 8 p.m. at the Ordway Theater in downtown St. Paul. Thank you so much. I've enjoyed this conversation. Let's do it again.
Yeah, thank you, Al.
All right. All right. Take care.
Take care.
Cool.